My last presenter of the day for this bit, and then we're going to have a bit of a panel session with questions, is Matt Cunliffe. Now, I know Matt through the Royal Engineers, through my innovations working group. In fact, the Reserves Innovation Working Group open to regular reserves, or your staff can be a part of that if they are a member of the Army Reserves, Navy Reserves, or RAF. So we're all part of this team trying to get things better in innovations world. But Smurf helps me run that. Why is he called Smurf? Okay, many years ago, so this is a bit of information you can't read there, he joined the Navy. And he's quite short, as you'll probably notice when he stands up here. If he stood next to me, he's sort of knee height. But he needed to choose a nickname when he arrived and make sure everybody called him that right from the very beginning, rather than calling him something that, well, quite frankly, you know how cruel the military can be with a name like that. You never know what you're going to get called. But awesome fellow, I'm going to hand you over to him now to talk to us a little bit about that end game.
Thank you very much, Ian. So, left and right.
There you are.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, so digital twins, operation and maintenance. Okay. So, I've got this up here. Yes, a bit of a CV. Now, this isn't to sort of show off or anything. This is to try and prove to myself that I might know what I'm on about. Still don't think I do. So, why do I think I know what I'm on about? For 17 years, yeah. I've run a CAD outsourcing company, generally dealing with MEP deliverables. So in that sort of BIM environment, especially with SMEs, so sort of contractors trying to deal with things. Some engagement initially with FM, especially on that kind of handover sort of element, but started understanding things were a bit iffy then. Obviously, all that beautiful stuff, Kobe, all those sort of good stuff, playing around with VR, etc. Same time, I did join the Royal Engineers. So draftsman role, kind of similar as Civvy Street, get to do the sort of same job. Currently, my role is Unit Information Manager and Digital Innovation Senior NCO, which is great because I get to run around and pretend I think I know what I'm talking about with things. Do a lot of Revit training with them. Really into the reality capture side. We're starting to utilize that. Me and Ian have got a cracking task next month doing some tunnel scanning. Started getting into more the sort of asset management side, so getting off the tools and sort of doing sexy 3D models into actually doing something a bit more useful and understanding things a bit further. As you mentioned, Reserve Innovation Working Group, etc. So Sitedesk 2020, so this is when I started sort of getting more engaged with the FM world. Started speaking with them a lot more, starting to understand them. Been involved with the company for quite a while. So, right, I hate the term digital twin, to be honest, right? Honestly, I find it so bullshitted out of marketing now. And I hate it when I have to say it. I even came up with a great element for it, digital essence. I think that's great. It sort of encompasses everything then, rather than somebody coming up with a bullshit term. But we see ourselves as a kind of future digital twin interface. So it's kind of a 3D modeling sort of platform. But that has allowed me to engage with the O&M world. So got a couple of NHS trusts, housing associations, and some critical infrastructure elements. So it's kind of, I've been in this progression moving across into FM all the way through my sort of career so far. And starting to understand a lot of the pains in there. So again, I put that in for me to think, right, maybe I do know what I'm on about. And then I'm right. Talking about digital twins in FM, O&M. There is no. Try and search it. There's literally no case study that somebody says that people talk about it. Companies have got things that they say they're doing things, but you can't see an actual building properly. And then some of them that come out, obviously they're using it in different means. So initially when I'm doing this presentation, I'm like, crap, what do I actually put in? And then I realized, well, actually it doesn't really matter because there isn't anything. All I can do is sort of blag it in a way because there isn't really anything there. So hopefully my blag comes out well at the end, but we'll see. So that's my get out clause, okay? If I am talking clear and BS, then it's all right because there isn't actually one. Right, because I'm a lazy git, got GBT, what are the benefits of digital twins for ops and maintenance? I'm not going to go through it. It's quite obvious, isn't it? Real-time monitoring, predictive, etc., improved planning design, all those sort of good things. Trying to understand that building better, how we manage it better, how we do better things with that data. So we know what the benefits are. We've got systems that can kind of do that through EMSs, etc. So we know what we want to kind of achieve. But are we? So the digital twin, again, I really hate the amount of companies that are saying, get a digital twin. It's only reality capture. It's not digital twin. It's whatever. So all these aspects of the digital twin. Obviously, it's not just one thing. It's everything that comes together to create that overarching element of what it is, okay? Especially in FM, we have all these aspects. We have some CAF FM, so doing some kind of maybe monitoring and sensoring to be able to obviously do system control. Maybe you could argue that's kind of a digital twin. Obviously, we want to get it linked in, IoT, CDEs, BIM models, etc. So we know we have the components. We know they're there. We know we have the methods to provide the data and the models. We know we have the technology to do it. And importantly, we know that we need to make sure we can plug something in later to carry on making that jigsaw piece, jigsaw board. But, so opinion corner side, again, I don't think a digital twin is going to be one color. It's not going to be one company providing the whole thing. It's going to be all these companies coming together with their systems, plugging in and being able to grow. A digital twin isn't one thing for one person. It's multiple different things for everybody, okay? It's FM in NHS will want to deal with it differently because they got their own demands, housing associations, et cetera, et cetera. So it needs to be adaptable. We have to make it adaptable. It will not be a single vendor platform, as I said. It needs to be integratable. We need to allow that flexibility for it to grow, and more importantly, to play with others. That growth element, multiple stakeholders and owners. This is interesting side of that kind of data piece, which I'll talk about later, who kind of owns the data, et cetera. Really importantly, especially in the FM world, getting over that cultural aspect. Not to broad brush, but the FM world is generally a kind of more senior generation. Adapting to change and all that sort of stuff, getting over that cultural barrier has frankly been one of the biggest things I've sort of noticed. So we need to handhold, adjust what they've got, and then grow it, is the way I see it. So, mini example, again, there isn't really many digital twins. The closest we sort of come to playing about with one was a smart theatre that we did on St. James's. So yeah, a bit of reality capture. So that was using a Navi system, then doing asset capture, obviously identifying elements, bringing in some IoT devices to manage energy flow, air flows and stuff like that, be able to sort of understand those elements, getting some business intelligence and linking up to the enterprise asset management system. Brilliant. What did we learn? Well, yeah, a lot of tech, a lot of money, but in 18 months, understanding to shut down out a period so that it's not constantly on, because that's generally what they do. They keep it there so that you can always make sure it's at temperature, so we can start cutting that down, reducing our energy costs, etc. Obviously, the sustainability side of that, dropping down your energy, good sort of targets there. And again, that remote interaction. So don't worry, not loads of case studies, but that is a close approximate digital essence, I think. Say, not digital twin, I think a good digital essence of what we can actually do now. So why aren't we? What are these barriers that are stopping us? So as I mentioned, FM, digital maturity, trying to get on board, they are keen. They want to do it, but it is difficult. It's like, how do I do it? How do I get into it? What do I use? What resources? A lot of FM, they don't manage the building, they manage the contracts for the building. So it's then who do you deal with to carry out that element? Developing that understanding to make them aware of what they can do so that they know what they're getting. Big one, frankly, is especially NHS, 1960s building or something. It's been Frankenstein with loads of new builds on top of it, new plant coming in all the time. They don't know what they've got. They got microfilm maybe from years back, or critical national infrastructure, water infrastructure company, say pipe work everywhere, 6 billion assets. Is it still there? Is that drawing still relevant, etc.? So trying to capture that what is has been the kind of biggest barrier for them. I've actually noticed it's trying to understand what I do have first. I do think vendors, I mean, yes, I'm a vendor, but we need to be looking at that kind of commercial aspect. This lock-in, it's trying to keep you all blue and then get our other systems and don't play with them because we want to keep you. We need to get away from that. Get them up, integrations going a lot more, get some more APIs out there so that we can get people to plug and play with us all in a nice sort of space. And terminology and misinterpretation. Let's stop calling your shit digital twin. It's not, right? You're a player in the digital twin world. You are not the digital twin. Money, obviously, always comes down to money to get all these systems in play, to go out and scan 175,000 square meters of estate. Not a cheap thing, especially then you want to data-rich model it, etc. So, yeah, big barrier there. And this is coming to a big forefront now. So data ownership. Who owns it? Do we keep it on there? Do they have it? Do we pull it back? Do I want to own it? What's the governance with that? What's that data sovereignty element. Is the vendors letting me? Are their servers in the US or are they here? Big one now at the moment. And there isn't a real easy answer on that. Again, especially dealing with NHS, trying to get them 12 terabytes of scanning data. They don't have any storage. But how do we get them over to them? Fun one. So, what are we on? Right. So that route to getting the adoption, how do we then get this digital twin, digital essence element going within the FM world and the O&M world? So at the moment, we're in this sort of phase of, yeah, we're pretty good at digital construction, I think. We're pretty awesome, I'll be honest. I can create a sexy 3D model and everything, all the data on it, asset information, yeah, brilliant. So we're really good at that, the tech's there, but what happens at the end? We drop out a massive Excel sheet with fully integrated data schema that looks amazing. We drop out an IFC and call it an asset information model, and then we give them a lot of O&Ms. But FM, they don't know how to use Kobe. I mean, there's very few systems that are really good at plugging Kobe across. It's like Maximo, we were playing back with quite a while, having to change the schema just to make it suit to that. I was always in this thought process when we were delivering Kobe elements of, all right, people aren't really using it. They go back to their old school. But if we're creating a data schema, at least for now, it's maybe something we can use to do new platforms, new integrations later on as a data set. But actually, they want to use different systems now. I think Kobe, to be honest, needs to be kind of swiped out. We need to deal with data schemas specific rather than just kind of having a, yeah, massive Excel sheet. Yeah, and I mean, the amount of times, again, with some NHS trusts, they're going through BIM, they have their project at the end of it. Where's your 3D model? Oh, we're not getting it. I said, why not? It's your building. He says, oh, it's not really part of the deliverables. I'm like, well, just get it. I mean, even if you don't say that you have to have these information requirements, something is better than nothing. Really, really throws me. So, yeah, I think we're in this space where we're really good at this, but we let it slip at this bit. This circle doesn't come back around then. It starts fading off when the FM get it. They don't understand what they're doing with it. They go back to business as usual, keep it sort of boring, and then we lose that circle again. We have to sort of come back and we have to rescan and capture everything again. So I'm in a case of, let's start here then, right? We have the technology. We can go and we can do a reality capture. We can use that reality capture to start understanding what assets we have. Is that asset still relevant? Does it align to the schematics, etc.? What O&Ms do I have that actually still relate to that? So let's use this point to get FM to the point where they can start playing, understanding their building more, understanding what their requirements are. At that point then, they can start innovating, obviously, and then start pushing it back and driving what they want. I find a lot of the time, the asset information requirement side is dictated more by the principal contractor. They say, you're having BIM, you're having Kobe, you're having an IFC. Okay. Why? Because that's BIM. So it's kind of getting pushed this way. And again, it's an opinion, yes. But in my experience, a lot of, me and a good friend, when we go to like construction weeks and stuff, we have a favorite term, BBB, bloody BIM bullshitters. So I do think there's this element of a lot of sort of people playing in the spiel, just going out there looking good, putting loads of complication in, but it's not coming back round. Great for construction side, but as far as I'm concerned, especially BIM and the digital twin, is all about the operations and maintenance side. Sod them two, we're the most important bit. Because if you can't use it properly, what's the point in building it in the first place? Okay? So let's start educating the FM, get them into the sandbox, start understanding things, starting understanding the way they want their information, how they want to do it, and what they can do with it. And then they'll start getting that value proposition back as well earlier. So this is what we sort of suggest to a lot of FM now. Right. Have a play space. Don't just try and do a solution. Have a piss around area, okay? You just want to understand what you can get out of it. Put something in, see if it works or not. Start asking the questions and start validating whether or not it's going to work for yourself. So is what we have current? Does it still exist? What compliance is that actually going to support? It's going to help me out in building safety side, risk mitigation, etc. So start understanding what you've got there. And more importantly, start understanding what data you've got. Build up that data, capture it, understand it, and start creating that fertile ground. I mean, I hate doing these kind of things, you know, like, oh, but we get it, we let it grow and nurture, and then we can have our flourishing digital twin. But it is a growth thing. And if we don't get the ground right for it, it's not going to be able to adapt and evolve. So yes, we push for this kind of sandbox area and then a kind of production space of it where, right, that's all good. Put it into your normal space now. It's having a play. When you're starting to bring in a new system, a new practice, play in the sandbox first before you actually put it into the actual sort of play space. So it allows that data set to keep clean while you can still piss around. Right. So yes, biggest thing is obviously good data. We don't have good data, whether it's from construction or catching what we do have to see whether or not our O&Ms are actually still in play. There's no point in doing any AI. There's no point in doing any sexy, cool stuff in the future if you don't have what you've got that's good. So we really do need to focus on validating what we actually have. And I think this is where reality capture is fantastic. Just being able to go out and understand pump one still exists. Cool. When we get that, I think this kind of validation of existing data is a perfect space for AI, frankly, okay? Ignore the sexy, cool stuff later, all the analytics from the digital essence, etc. So we went to an innovation festival up in Newcastle last year, and we were working with an AI company to kind of do a theoretical UI. So what that was doing was using image recognition to go through all those PDFs from last 60 years, etc., all the drawings, etc., all the information that's associated. So if you were to search pump one in pump room 2, it would say, right, there's this kind of drawing from here from the 60s. Somebody might have checked it about 10 years ago. Here's a score that we think this might exist, but you need to go and check it. So try and create that validated, trusted data set to A, go, actually, AI's kind of told me I've got a good data set for this item, so that's probably good. These things down here, actually, I need to play with and go and find out, get somebody out on the ground and check whether it exists. So I think that's a really good use for AI at the moment, to almost put a mirror before that line of evolving to make sure the data that we've got is good. Does that make sense? Obviously, that can create our fertile ground then. This is a really interesting one. So obviously, going through the M&E world in BIM, asset numbering is key. We know that we have to have pump one, etc. However, it threw me with O&M that, especially some housing associations, they don't have an asset identification system. So there's no way to uniquely identify that thing, which I found really interesting. Now, that's hugely important for me because obviously we're nice butts turn going around at the moment with golden thread. Obviously threading all that data across all the platforms, make sure everything's good. But I come up with my own one. We need to golden needle the golden thread. We need to get like a unique identifier across that asset in all its locations, so that we can then at least use that identification to pull everything together to understand that data around it. So yes, that's my term. Okay, trademarked. Child and parent system identification, that kind of element of obviously the system, etc. Do I call pump one as the UID, or do I call pump one as the function because I want that data for the pump for all life, or etc. Yeah, what's the common property actually? Yeah. Do I need to develop a new strategy for developing definitions across the digital twin platform? So again, working with the FM, we are sort of going in and going, right, well, you need to get a unique identification. What is your asset naming strategy? How do you build that up? How will that work with all your other things? How will that work when it tests into other states, especially in that sort of sandbox? So gap analysis. Again, how do I digitize the critical elements that we're paper basing? It's a good way. Paper indicates a digital opportunity. End of the day, if we're still doing it that way, how can we automate that? And again, a lot of the time in the sandbox, we say, go out and do it as a person to see if then you can make that process digital. That makes sense? Hopefully we can keep us all there going forever so we don't get wiped out. Yeah. So there are so many cool opportunities. Yes, we saw the potential value propositions at the start, but some of the interesting spaces. A couple of years ago, we built a platform for a major plumbing supplier, and their plan was to go into pump rooms that they're old, reality capture it, asset tag everything, put on PPMs and stuff like that, link it up to cost modeling so that they can maybe replace a pump with something better, etc. And this got us into this kind of idea of this kind of potential of a new operating expenditure element. So we lease cars. Why can't we lease a pump? Now, you won't want to lease a pump because how do you make sure you monitor it right, etc.? How do you deal with everything? If we can get to the point where we've got IoT feeds coming off of that pump to understand it's working within its operational capacity, it's not doing too much, too little, etc., we can then change the way we talk and think about procuring things. So, oh bugger, my pump's bust. I need to go and buy a cheap one from some foreign country that's going to get knackered in 2 years' time. Or if you got all that data coming into it, why doesn't the manufacturer just lease it to you? They've got constant income then, monthly revenue. They've got the maintenance element and stuff. Means that FM can buy the better pump rather than panicking within their operational budget and just getting something cheap and nasty to deal with the fix. So all these kind of opportunities about when we get this data. One of the things I love saying at kind of events is I think the biggest value proposition of moving into a digital thing is the unforeseen. So in construction, the unforeseen is the issue. All those things that are going to slow down the job. But I think the unforeseen in digital is going to be the thing that will make everything so much better. But we won't know until we start doing it and start getting those things into play. Risk management. So we're about to kind of work with a major insurance provider about starting a term kind of risk data model. So if you can obviously have all your data, then you can obviously have better risk identification. Will that affect your premiums? Interesting one. Will you actually get insurance then? Because if you're showing that you're managing your rack, you can show you're managing your fire risk, etc., with your cladding, then you will get insurance. But if you're just sort of saying, I am, but you're not proving it, then insurance companies are really, really scared at the moment about even insuring people. So we are in, I believe, the fourth industrial revolution, the connected revolution, the cyber revolution. I think that is a space that means we need to get away from the competition element. We need to collaborate, because if we have that data, we share the data, then it's great. I mean, this isn't just necessarily from vendor to vendor. End of the day, the supplier of that pump could get a lot of benefit if they have that data from the pump as well. They understanding that operational capacity. Is it working as it should do? What's my data set from all the other pumps and all the other places? Am I getting that sort of good level of data across? Obviously, data is the new oil, so we don't want to obviously throw it out there. I think there's an opportunity for something called data holder capitalism, where we kind of use data as almost a currency, and it's what we were talking about before and might pop up in a bit. Yeah, it's kind of jumping on this idea that data doesn't have to be just a single holder. It needs to be shared, it needs to be used. We need to collaborate together so that we can actually build up this environment. So yes, to round up, BIM, right, been worried about this. BIM should have been all about FM, far more involvement from them on their needs, but it's been snatched either unintentionally, or I think more likely intentionally, by those in the construction delivery stages dictating what they think is best rather than what they think FM is best. Now FM has just had to shut up and cope with what they get, because those bloody BIM bullshitters just saying, there you go, have that. Okay. So I think digital twin, this new element, this moving into this new world is an opportunity for FM to start grabbing the horns of this bull and start understanding their building better, so they can start dictating in the construction delivery phase what they want more. So, vive la FM, vive la dissolution. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks, Matt. Certainly some of the, sweet, cheers, bud. Some of the bits you brought up there and the FM world, we found that over the years that it's, having been involved with the government, the sort of the BIM world right from the very beginning, looking at the construction strategy in 2011 and writing that earlier, I was always amazed that we didn't talk to the FM people as much as we did now, and we didn't engage them properly, and they weren't involved in those initial conversations. We were talking to the contractors because they potentially had quite a bit of money, and that was about it. I was really frustrated at the very, very beginning. One of the things that I did like, because you sort of brought up at the end, and it flagged a memory in my brain there, was about something that we looked at quite a while ago, in that the FM people didn't necessarily own the pump, a bit like the Rolls-Royce model. In fact, you don't own the Rolls-Royce engine. You buy an outcome, and the outcome is certain amounts of pounds per square inch of thrust in the air for a certain amount of time, and that's what you're buying. And if it comes down for maintenance, then if you can get it into the air quickly, the maintenance world, then the money is still safe. But if you can't, then you're not. And the way they do that is by having your digital twin of the engine and the kind of the sensors and monitors on that engine, and it's not necessarily the owner who is monitoring that, but Rolls-Royce themselves, the owner of the engine. And so therefore you're procuring that outcome. And I suppose that dials back through Ivan in that you are recording what those outcomes you're trying to achieve are, and then tracking those all the way through the delivery to the far end of the pieces of information that you're requiring to be delivered. And it also comes down to what Pete was talking about right at the very beginning, in the fact that you are procuring that outcome, you're paying for that outcome, you're paying for the lower risk, and making sure that everybody gets a good profit in the end. So we sort of come to the end of the presentations, but we do have the panel and some questions. So I know we're a little ahead of time, which is pretty cool. So we'll start these now, and then we will move from there. So I'm going to get you guys to grab a seat up here.